Chosen one, you are not here by accident. You did not stumble into this message. This moment was written into your scroll long before you were born, and now by heaven's design you are watching at the exact appointed time. This is not Chronos time, this is Kairos. The hour on heaven's clock has struck, and something sealed is beginning to open. Chosen one. If your marriage has felt confusing, heavy, or painfully repetitive, if the same arguments keep circling, the same emotions keep erupting, and you've quietly wondered, why does love feel so hard when it shouldn't? Hear this carefully. What you are about to understand is not information. It is revelation. A hidden pattern is about to be exposed. A third presence you could not see is about to be named. The Spirit is reminding you of what is written, for the vision is for an appointed time. Though it tarries, wait for it will surely come. This is that time. Tonight or in the days just ahead, clarity will replace confusion. Peace will interrupt chaos, and power will return to your hands. Anointed One. This message is an invitation to step out of cycles and into alignment. As Ecclesiastes tells us, there is a time for every purpose under heaven, and Isaiah declares that at the right time he will make it happen swiftly. If your heart is ready, stay with me. And as you do, align yourself, subscribe, and quietly mark this moment by commenting 777. Heaven is already moving. Chosen one, let me begin by asking you a question that heaven itself asks only when a moment is ripe. If God were to move in your marriage right now, not later, not someday, not after everything is fixed, but now, would you accept it? Not a small adjustment, not a surface improvement, but a real intervention, a deep heart-level shift, a miracle that might feel uncomfortable before it feels good. I ask you this because what heaven calls a miracle often looks different than what we expect. Many people imagine a miracle as God changing the other person, changing their tone, their habits, their words, their behavior. But the kind of miracle God releases in Kairos time begins somewhere else entirely. It begins when a heart becomes available. I have seen it with my own eyes. Couples who could barely look at each other. Couples who sat in silence, exhaustion written all over their faces. Couples who came in convinced that love had died. And yet when something shifted inside, when defensiveness lowered, when blame loosened its grip, when the heart cracked open just enough, God moved quickly, not slowly, not reluctantly. He moved decisively, and they walked away changed. Anointed One, hear this clearly. Heaven does not hesitate when a heart is open, but there is something that often blocks that openness, something subtle, something invisible, something that feels like you, but isn't actually you at all. And this is where today's revelation begins. There is a third presence that enters many marriages, not a person, not an affair, not an outside voice, but a cycle, a pattern, a mechanism that slips in quietly, takes the wheel, and drives conversations places neither of you intended to go. You don't invite it. You don't plan for it. And most people don't even know it has a name. This is the reactive cycle. It shows up when a single sentence lands the wrong way, when a tone feels sharp, when disappointment flashes across a face, when something old, shame, fear, judgment gets touched. And in that moment, something ancient inside the human nervous system takes over. Logic steps back, curiosity disappears, love goes silent, and reaction takes the lead. I want you to pause here because this is important. This is not a failure of faith. This is not a lack of love. This is not proof that your marriage is broken beyond repair. This is what happens when the human heart feels unsafe. From the very beginning, humanity learned to hide when shame entered the picture, to cover, to deflect, to protect. And when that instinct rises inside a marriage, the reactive cycle steps between two people who were meant to stand side by side. Suddenly, you are no longer facing the problem together, you are facing each other. Chosen one. This is why so many arguments feel repetitive, why the same fight keeps returning in different clothing, why you walk away thinking, "How did we get here again?" It is not because you are incapable of change, it is because the cycle keeps getting activated before wisdom has a chance to speak. And here is the prophetic turning point. Once you can see the cycle, it loses its authority. The reactive cycle thrives in darkness. It survives on confusion. But the moment light enters the moment, understanding arrives, its power weakens. This is why Scripture reminds us that the vision is for an appointed time, and when that time comes, it speaks clearly. You are not early. You are not late. You are here because this understanding is meant to arrive now. Let me make this personal for a moment. I have lived this. I have watched how quickly a good intention can turn into a sharp exchange, how easily disappointment can become accusation, and how fast the heart can retreat when it feels misunderstood. I've also seen the other side, the moment when someone pauses instead of reacting, when they tend to their own heart instead of trying to fix the other person. And in that pause, something holy enters the space. That pause is where God works, not because he was absent before, but because he is invited in there. So, Anointed One, as you listen, I want you to release the pressure to solve everything today. This is not about fixing your spouse. This is about reclaiming your power, guarding your heart, and recognizing the unseen pattern that has been interfering with the connection heaven intended for you. This message is not condemnation. It is illumination, and illumination always precedes transformation. Stay with me. In the next movement, we are going to expose how the reactive cycle hijacks the mind, why safety is the key it fears most, and how God restores authority to the one who chooses awareness over reaction. Chosen One, let us go deeper, because now that the light has been turned on, heaven expects understanding to follow. What you are facing is not random, and it is not a mystery meant to torment you. It is a pattern, and every pattern can be interrupted once it is revealed. The reactive cycle does not begin with words, it begins in the body. This is why so many people say, "I don't know what came over me," or "I reacted before I could think." That is not an excuse, it is a clue. When a trigger is activated, the part of the brain responsible for wisdom, empathy, and discernment goes quiet. The nervous system takes over. The body believes it is under threat, even if the threat is emotional, not physical. This is why tone matters more than content. This is why a sigh, a pause, or a look can ignite something far bigger than the moment itself. And this is why the same argument can feel different every time, yet always end in the same place. The cycle feeds on old wounds, not present facts. Anointed One. This is where many people unknowingly partner with the cycle. Instead of tending to what is happening inside, they rush outward. They try to explain, correct, defend, or fix. But reaction only fuels reaction. When you react from a triggered place, you press a button in the other person, and when their button is pressed, their wisdom goes offline too. Now the cycle has two drivers, and neither of them is fully present. This is the moment where heaven whispers something counterintuitive: pause. Not to punish, not to withdraw in bitterness, but to return to yourself. This is what personal responsibility truly means. It is not blame turned inward. It is power reclaimed. It is the decision to say, "I am responsible for my heart, my response, and my alignment." When you do this, you are not abandoning the relationship. You are protecting it. I have learned this the hard way. There were times I believed that if I could just explain myself better, the conflict would resolve. But explanation without safety feels like attack, and correction without connection feels like rejection. What actually changed things was not better arguments, it was better awareness. Awareness creates space. Space creates safety. Safety invites God. This is why a safe marriage is not defined only by the absence of physical harm. Safety is emotional. Safety is mental. Safety is spiritual. It is the assurance that your thoughts will not be mocked, your feelings will not be dismissed, your body will not be threatened, and your spirit will not be shamed. When safety exists, the heart relaxes. And when the heart relaxes, heaven gains access. Chosen one. The reactive cycle cannot survive where safety is actively cultivated. Think about this in everyday life. When someone feels safe, they soften. When they soften, they listen. When they listen, they understand. And when understanding grows, connection follows. This is not theory. This is how God designed the human soul. But when safety is missing, even unintentionally, the cycle rushes in. It turns conversations into battlegrounds and partners into opponents. And slowly over time, love begins to feel exhausting, not because it is gone, but because it has been buried under constant vigilance. This is why guarding your heart is sacred work. Not guarding it by closing it off, but by stewarding it wisely. Paying attention to what is happening inside you before words ever leave your mouth. Noticing when your chest tightens, your jaw clenches, your stomach drops. These are signals. They are invitations to slow down. Here is the quiet truth many never hear. The moment you tend to your own heart, you disrupt the cycle. You do not need the other person's permission to do this. You do not need agreement. You do not need validation. This is an internal shift, and it carries authority. When one person steps out of reaction and into awareness, the energy of the entire interaction changes. The cycle loses momentum, and this is where divine timing comes in. There are seasons when God allows patterns to repeat, not to punish you, but to prepare you for revelation. What once felt like endless frustration now becomes clarity. What once felt personal now becomes understandable, and what once felt hopeless now becomes workable. Chosen one. This is not about perfection. It is about presence, about choosing to be awake in moments where you once went unconscious, about inviting God into the space between trigger and response. That space is holy ground. As you continue listening, allow yourself to release the urgency to win, explain, or resolve. Something deeper is happening. You are learning how to step out of the cycle and back into alignment. And alignment always precedes breakthrough. Stay with me. What comes next will show you the specific strategies the cycle uses to protect itself and how awareness dismantles them one by one. Chosen one. Now that you can recognize the cycle and feel its movement, it is time to expose how it disguises itself. The reactive cycle is not loud at first. It does not announce its arrival. It slips in wearing familiar emotions, convincing you that you are simply protecting yourself, standing your ground, or being reasonable. But underneath those justifications, something else is happening. When vulnerability is touched and safety feels threatened, the cycle offers two primary strategies. They feel opposite, but they serve the same purpose: self-protection without connection. One strategy makes you bigger, sharper, louder, more certain. This is the part of you that steps forward to control the situation. It may sound like criticism, lecturing, sarcasm, or cold precision. It creates distance by intimidation. Not because you want to hurt the other person, but because you do not want your own pain to be seen. This strategy convinces you that strength means dominance. The other strategy makes you smaller, quieter, withdrawn. This is the part of you that retreats, shuts down, or goes numb. It avoids eye contact. It limits words. It protects itself by disappearing emotionally. This strategy convinces you that safety comes from distance. Chosen one. Both of these responses are attempts to survive, not to love. The cycle does not care which strategy you choose. It only needs you to choose one. Because the moment you do, the connection breaks. And when connection breaks, the cycle tightens its grip. Here is the painful irony: the very strategies meant to protect you are the ones that keep you stuck. I have seen this play out in ordinary, unremarkable moments. A conversation about money that suddenly feels like judgment. A question about timing that sounds like criticism. A look that feels like disappointment. And suddenly the room shifts. The energy changes, the heart closes, and the cycle steps fully into the space between two people who love each other. Anointed one. This is where many believe they have only two options: fight harder or withdraw further. But heaven offers a third way. That third way is not silence. It is not submission. It is awareness paired with compassion. Compassion first for yourself. When you notice the urge to attack or disappear, pause. Not to analyze the other person, but to acknowledge what has been activated in you. Ask yourself quietly, what am I feeling right now? Not what am I thinking, not what should be happening, but what am I feeling? Disappointment, fear, shame, loneliness. These feelings are not enemies, they are messengers. When you honor them instead of suppressing them, something remarkable happens. The nervous system begins to settle. The adult part of your mind returns. And in that moment, choice is restored. This is why heaven cares so deeply about self-care that goes beyond comfort. True self-care is not distraction. It is not numbing. It is not pretending everything is fine. True self-care is the willingness to stay present with what is happening inside you without acting it out on someone else. And this is where God enters the process in a profound way. God does not shame you for having reactions. He understands the human frame He created, but He invites you to bring those reactions into the light. When you say, even silently, Lord, something in me is stirred, you open the door for His perspective to replace your instinct. This is not psychology without God. This is understanding creation with the Creator. When you allow God into that internal moment, clarity begins to rise. You start to see that the person in front of you is not the enemy. The cycle is. And the cycle loses its power the moment you refuse to let it speak for you. Chosen one. This is also why blame feels so tempting. Blame promises relief. It says, if I can just get them to change, I can rest. But blame quietly hands your power away. It places your peace in someone else's behavior. And heaven never designed you to live that way. Power returns when responsibility returns. Not responsibility for the entire relationship. Not responsibility for the other person's choices, but responsibility for your own alignment. This is where fascination replaces resentment. When you stop assuming you already know everything about the person you love, curiosity returns. Curiosity reopens the heart. And the heart, once open, becomes fertile ground again. One lifetime is not enough to fully know another soul, and the moment you believe there is nothing left to learn, connection begins to wither. But when curiosity is restored, romance quietly follows. Not as emotion first, but as presence. Chosen one. The cycle thrives on certainty. Certainty that you are right. Certainty that you already know. Certainty that nothing will change. Revelation disrupts that certainty, and revelation has arrived. As you continue, you will learn how boundaries, compassion, and intentional communication create guardrails that keep the cycle from hijacking the relationship again. But for now, let this truth settle deeply. You are not powerless, you are not broken, and your marriage is not beyond hope. The cycle can be interrupted, and the moment you see it, heaven is already working. Chosen one. Now we arrive at a turning point, because awareness alone is not the end of the journey. Revelation always invites response. Once the cycle is exposed, heaven begins to teach you how to stand in the space where reaction once ruled. This is where boundaries are revealed, not as walls, not as punishment, but as sacred markers that protect what God is restoring. Many people misunderstand boundaries because they confuse them with control. They believe boundaries are about making the other person behave differently. But a true boundary is never about controlling another soul. It is about stewarding your own. A boundary says, "This is where I end and you begin." It is the quiet strength of knowing what you are responsible for and what you are not. Anointed one, when a boundary is healthy, it does not shout, it does not threaten, it does not shame. It simply acts. It steps back. It creates space. And in that space, safety has room to return. I have watched this play out in ways that were humbling and transformative. There were moments when someone I loved came toward me with intensity, words coming fast, energy rising, pressure building. In the past, I would have matched that energy or retreated completely. Both responses fed the cycle. But learning to set a boundary changed everything. Not by winning the moment, but by protecting the relationship. A boundary sounds like this: "I want to stay connected with you, but not in this way." And then it follows through. That follow-through is the part many struggle with. Because when you step away, the cycle will accuse you. It will whisper that you are abandoning, rejecting, or being unloving. But heaven sees it differently. Heaven recognizes self-respect. Heaven honors wisdom. And heaven blesses those who choose peace over escalation. Chosen one boundaries are acts of love when they are rooted in safety, not fear. This is especially important when guilt tries to interfere. Many people feel responsible for the emotional state of their spouse. They carry the unspoken belief that if the other person is upset, they must fix it immediately. But this belief quietly erodes safety. It replaces presence with pressure, and pressure always triggers the cycle. God never asked you to be the Holy Spirit for another person. He is fully capable of that role. Your assignment is not to manage someone else's reactions, but to manage your own alignment. When you honor a boundary, you are saying, "I trust God enough to let Him work in this space." And that trust shifts the atmosphere. This is where communication begins to change, not because conversations become perfect, but because they become safer. Safety is what allows hearts to open without fear of being attacked, ridiculed, or dismissed. When safety is present, truth can be spoken gently, and when truth is spoken gently, it is heard. One of the most powerful tools for rebuilding safety is learning to speak from the heart rather than from the trigger. Heart-centered communication does not argue facts. It reveals experience. It says, "This is what I felt," instead of, "This is what you did wrong." It invites understanding instead of defense. This kind of communication requires patience. It requires listening without planning a response. It requires caring more about being understood than being right. And yes, it feels vulnerable, but vulnerability in a safe space is not weakness, it is courage. I remember the first time I truly listened without interrupting, not waiting to speak, not rehearsing my point, just listening. Something unexpected happened. The tension softened. The other person relaxed, and connection quietly re-entered the room. It was not dramatic. It was holy. Chosen one. This is what it looks like to reclaim ground the cycle once occupied. The cycle thrives on speed. Boundaries slow things down. The cycle feeds on assumption. Curiosity dismantles it. The cycle survives on blame. Responsibility starves it. And when one person chooses this path, the entire dynamic shifts. You may not see immediate results. You may not receive instant validation. But something deeper is being established. A new foundation, a safer rhythm, a restored alignment. Scripture reminds us that a house divided cannot stand. The enemy's strategy has always been division, turning partners into adversaries. But heaven's strategy is unity, not uniformity. You do not have to think the same to stand together. You do not have to feel the same to walk in the same direction. Chosen one. Your marriage was never meant to be a battlefield. It was meant to be a place of growth, refinement, and shared purpose. And even if that purpose feels distant right now, it is not lost. It is waiting for alignment. As you continue, you will see how fascination replaces familiarity, how curiosity restores intimacy, and how small daily choices create lasting change. The cycle does not have the final word. Awareness does, wisdom does, and God does. Stay present. Something is being rebuilt. Chosen one. Now we come to a place many never expect, the quiet rebuilding of intimacy. Not the dramatic kind portrayed in stories, but the deep, steady kind that grows when two people begin to see each other again. This is where heaven restores what familiarity quietly eroded, and where the cycle finally begins to starve. Most people assume passion fades because time passes, but time is not the enemy. Assumption is. The moment you believe there is nothing new to learn about the person you love, curiosity dies. And when curiosity dies, fascination follows. Romance does not disappear overnight, it thins slowly, until one day it feels distant and unreachable. Chosen one fascination is not mystery for mystery's sake. It is reverence. It is the recognition that another human soul is far deeper than your current understanding. This is why Scripture speaks of knowing as a sacred process. To truly know someone is not to master them, but to remain open to discovery. I have seen how easily this slips away. Life becomes busy, responsibilities pile up, conversations become transactional about schedules, bills, tasks. Slowly, the heart stops being invited into the room. And when the heart is absent, the cycle finds room to operate. It feeds on distance. It thrives where curiosity once lived. But the good news is, this fascination can be restored. Not by forcing emotion, but by choosing presence. Presence looks like listening without interrupting. Presence looks like asking questions without an agenda. Presence looks like noticing changes instead of resisting them. Anointed one, people change. Growth reshapes them. Pain marks them. Joy softens them. If you are not curious, you will miss who they are becoming. And if you miss who they are becoming, you will feel disconnected even while standing beside them. This is where many misunderstand faith. They believe spiritual maturity means ignoring emotional needs. But God designed the human heart to need connection. Emotional intimacy is not a distraction from holiness, it is one of its expressions. When you honor another person's inner world, you reflect the way God honors yours. I remember a season when I thought I knew everything about someone I loved. I could predict their responses. I assumed their thoughts. And in that certainty, I stopped asking. What I didn't realize was that I had stopped seeing them. When I finally slowed down and asked again, truly asked what they were feeling, something softened. Not because the answers were easy, but because the invitation was real. Chosen one curiosity disarms the cycle because it replaces accusation with wonder. When conflict arises, curiosity asks, what happened inside you just now? Instead of, why are you like this? When disappointment appears, curiosity asks, what does this mean to you? Instead of, you always do this. This shift changes everything. It signals safety, and safety invites honesty. When honesty emerges, connection rebuilds itself naturally. This is also why blame is so destructive to intimacy. Blame freezes curiosity. It decides before it listens. It closes the door before the conversation begins. And while blame may feel justified in the moment, it quietly drains desire over time. No one wants to be intimate with someone they feel judged by. Power returns when blame is released. Not because the other person suddenly changes, but because you reclaim your ability to choose how you show up. You stop waiting for permission to feel peace. You stop outsourcing your emotional stability. Chosen one intimacy is not built by perfection. It is built by repair. Repair happens when someone says, I reacted and I want to understand what happened. Repair happens when someone admits, I was afraid, not angry. Repair happens when someone chooses humility over control. These moments may feel small, but they are sacred. They create new memory pathways. They teach the nervous system that connection is possible, even after rupture. And over time, the cycle loses its familiarity. It no longer feels inevitable. This is how God restores what seemed lost, not through force, but through faithfulness. Through daily decisions to stay open, to remain curious, to choose presence when it would be easier to retreat or attack. Anointed one, you are not too late for this. Even if years have passed, even if distance feels deep, even if hope has grown quiet. Heaven is not intimidated by time. What matters is willingness. As you continue, you will learn how shared purpose replaces silent drift, how spiritual alignment strengthens emotional connection, and how the marriage itself becomes a place of healing rather than harm. What is being rebuilt now is not fragile, it is rooted. Stay with me. The restoration unfolding here is deeper than emotion, it is destiny aligned again. Chosen one. Now we move into the realm where many people hesitate because this is where surrender becomes practical. It is one thing to understand the cycle. It is another thing to let God reorder the inner life that feeds it. This is where alignment is tested, not by what you believe, but by how you care for the soul He entrusted to you. The reactive cycle is strongest when the inner life is neglected. Fatigue, resentment, unprocessed grief, chronic stress. These are not just emotional states, they are open doors. When the soul is depleted, reaction becomes automatic. Wisdom requires energy, discernment requires rest, and love requires capacity. This is why heaven speaks so often about tending the inner garden. Many people misunderstand self-care as indulgence, but sacred self-care is stewardship. It is the daily practice of noticing what is happening inside you before it spills onto the people you love. It is the discipline of slowing down long enough to recognize when your body is signaling distress. Tight shoulders, shallow breath, racing thoughts. These are not inconveniences, they are messages. Chosen one. The body remembers what the mind tries to ignore. When you pause and acknowledge those signals, something shifts. You move from reaction to awareness, from awareness to choice, and from choice to alignment. This is where heaven meets you, not in perfection, but in honesty. One of the hardest steps in this process is acceptance. Accepting what you feel without judging it. Accepting that you are triggered without condemning yourself. Accepting that something old has been stirred without rushing to suppress it. This acceptance does not make the feeling stronger. It makes it manageable. I remember resisting this step. I thought acknowledging difficult emotions would give them power. But the opposite was true. What I resisted controlled me. What I accepted softened. The moment I stopped fighting what I felt, space opened for God's perspective to enter. And this is where divine partnership becomes real. When you invite God into the moment of activation, not after the argument, not hours later, but right there, clarity arrives. You begin to see beyond the immediate emotion. You recognize the deeper need beneath the reaction, and compassion replaces urgency. This is not about choosing psychology over faith. It is about honoring how God designed the human system. He formed the body, the mind, and the spirit to work together. When one is ignored, the whole system suffers. But when all three are tended, strength returns. Chosen one. Heaven does not ask you to deny your humanity. It asks you to bring it into the light. This is also why proactive care matters. Not just responding when triggered, but creating rhythms that sustain you. Rest, nourishment, movement, silence, prayer. These are not luxuries, they are foundations. Without them, even the most loving heart will struggle to stay present. But hear this carefully, no one comes seeking help because they failed at proactive care. They come because something was activated, and heaven meets you there too. There is no shame in learning mid-journey. What matters is the willingness to return to yourself instead of abandoning yourself in moments of tension. When you stay with yourself, you remain available, and availability is what allows God to move swiftly. This is why blame feels tempting when we are depleted. It offers a false sense of relief. It says, if I can place this discomfort on someone else, I can breathe. But blame always costs more than it gives. It transfers your power outward, and power misplaced becomes frustration. Power returns when you take responsibility for your inner state, not to isolate, but to align. I have watched people experience profound shifts simply by changing where they place their attention. Instead of tracking everything their spouse is doing wrong, they began tracking what was happening inside them. Not with self-criticism, but with curiosity. And that shift alone changed the tone of the relationship. This is the quiet miracle heaven releases. Not fireworks, not instant transformation, but steady restoration. As you tend your inner life, you will notice something unexpected. The cycle has less to work with. Triggers still appear, but they do not dominate. Reactions still arise, but they pass more quickly. And in those moments, choice becomes familiar again. This is what it means to be empowered. Not controlling the outcome, but stewarding your response. Not forcing change, but creating conditions where change becomes possible. Chosen one. This is not self-centered. It is God-centered. Because when you are aligned, you reflect His nature more clearly. And when you reflect His nature, peace follows you into every space, including your marriage. Stay present. The next movement will show you how this inner alignment begins to reshape communication itself, turning conversations that once divided into moments that reconnect. Chosen. One alignment within always precedes connection without. When the inner life begins to settle, communication naturally shifts. Not because you learned better words, but because your spirit is no longer speaking from a place of defense. This is where conversations that once escalated now have the potential to heal. Most conflict is not caused by what is said, but by what is felt underneath what is said. When emotional content goes unacknowledged, words become weapons. But when the heart is allowed into the conversation, the cycle loses its grip. This is where a sacred practice emerges: heart-centered communication. Heart-centered communication is not about convincing. It is not about winning. It is not about presenting evidence. It is about revealing experience. It is the courage to say, "This is what is happening inside me," without attaching blame or expectation. Chosen one. This kind of speaking requires safety, and safety begins when someone chooses to listen, not to respond, but to understand. Listening sounds simple, but it is one of the most disciplined acts of love. True listening quiets the impulse to interrupt, correct, or prepare a rebuttal. It stays present with the other person's reality, even when that reality is uncomfortable. It says, "Your experience matters to me," without needing to agree with every detail. I remember how unnatural this felt at first. My mind would race ahead, finishing sentences, anticipating conclusions. But when I slowed down, when I let the words land instead of chasing them, something softened. The tension dropped. The room changed. Understanding became possible. Chosen one. Understanding does not mean agreement. It means acknowledgement. When someone feels acknowledged, their nervous system relaxes. When the nervous system relaxes, the adult mind returns. And when the adult mind is present, solutions emerge organically. This is why reflective listening is so powerful. Not parroting words, but capturing meaning. Saying what I hear you saying is, and then pausing, letting the other person confirm or clarify. This pause matters. It communicates humility. It shows that you value accuracy over assumption. And here is the quiet miracle: when someone feels truly understood, they often soften toward you. Not because you fixed anything, but because you stayed present. Chosen one. This practice dismantles the reactive cycle because it removes its fuel. The cycle feeds on misinterpretation. When you seek understanding instead of certainty, the cycle starves. But there is another element that makes this communication sacred: care. Care is what allows words to touch the heart without causing harm. Care says, "I am listening because you matter." It transforms dialogue into connection. Without care, even the most accurate words feel cold. With care, even difficult truths can be received. This is why beginning with positive communication matters. Many people only speak from the heart when something is wrong. Over time, the heart learns to associate vulnerability with conflict. But when you practice heart-centered communication around positive moments, gratitude, appreciation, joy, you create a reservoir of safety. I have seen this change everything. Simple acknowledgements, small appreciations, moments of shared warmth. These build trust quietly. And when hard conversations arise, the foundation holds. Chosen one. Communication is not an event, it is a culture. When communication becomes a place of safety, curiosity returns. And when curiosity returns, fascination follows. You begin to notice things you missed. You hear tones you once ignored. You feel closeness where distance once lived. This is not accidental. This is alignment at work. And when communication shifts, the sense of being on the same team strengthens. You remember that you are not adversaries. You are partners facing a common challenge. There is no victory if one person loses. The only true win is shared peace. This understanding carries spiritual weight. Division has always been the enemy's strategy. When two people turn against each other, the ground is lost without a fight. But when unity is restored, not through sameness, but through mutual care, the atmosphere changes. Chosen one. Unity does not require perfection, it requires intention. As you practice heart-centered communication, expect resistance. Old habits will resurface. The cycle will attempt to reassert itself. But each time you pause, listen, and respond from alignment, you weaken its influence. This is how change becomes lasting. Not through grand declarations, but through faithful repetition. Stay with me. What comes next will show you how this restored communication reshapes identity, how you move from survival mode back into shared purpose, and how heaven reclaims what division once threatened to steal. Chosen one. When communication begins to heal, something deeper starts to shift identity. Not just how you see your spouse, but how you see yourself within the relationship. This is where many couples unknowingly remain stuck, because even when arguments lessen, the internal narrative has not yet changed. The reactive cycle does not only distort conversations, it reshapes identity over time. Without realizing it, people begin to define themselves by conflict. One becomes the problem solver, the other becomes the difficult one. One becomes the emotional one, the other becomes the distant one. These labels feel accurate because they have been rehearsed under pressure, but they are not destiny, they are adaptations. Chosen one adaptations are not identity. You adapted to survive moments that felt unsafe. You adapted to be heard. You adapted to protect yourself. But heaven never intended those adaptations to become permanent names. When safety returns, identity can be restored. This is where many feel disoriented. When the cycle weakens, the old roles no longer fit. The one who always fixed begins to feel tired. The one who always withdrew begins to feel restless. And the relationship enters a strange, quiet space where neither person knows exactly who to be. This space is not danger, it is transition. Transition feels uncomfortable because it removes the familiar, even when the familiar was painful. But this is the space where God does his most precise work. He begins to separate who you are from how you coped. I have lived this moment. When I stopped reacting the way I always had, I felt exposed. Without my usual defenses, I wondered who I was supposed to be now. But slowly, something steadier emerged. Not louder, not sharper, just clearer. Chosen. One clarity always follows surrender. As identity shifts, shared purpose begins to resurface. You remember that your marriage is not just about managing conflict. It is about walking together, growing together, becoming more whole together. Even seasons of difficulty carry purpose when they are navigated in alignment. This is why heaven speaks of seasons. There is a time to plant, a time to uproot, a time to heal, and a time to rebuild. What you are experiencing now is not the end of something, it is the reordering of it. Anointed one, purpose returns when blame releases its grip. Blame locks identity into fixed roles. It says, this is who you are. Responsibility opens identity back up. It says, this is how we adapted, but it does not have to define us. When responsibility is reclaimed, power returns. Not power over the other person, but power over your own posture, your tone, your choices. And that power changes the atmosphere more than force ever could. This is also where spiritual alignment deepens. When you stop trying to change your spouse and begin allowing God to change you, peace enters quietly. Not because everything is resolved, but because you are no longer resisting the process. I have watched people experience profound intimacy with God during seasons when their spouse did not change at all. And yet the marriage shifted. Not because one person carried everything, but because alignment invites grace. Chosen one. God does not require both people to awaken at the same moment. He honors the one who is willing. This is a difficult truth, but a freeing one. You are not waiting on permission to grow. You are not delayed because someone else is not ready. Your obedience still matters. Your alignment still counts. And heaven responds to faithfulness, not fairness. As identity heals, expectations soften. You stop demanding that the relationship meet needs it was never designed to fulfill alone. You bring your fullness into the relationship instead of asking the relationship to complete you. And in that fullness, love becomes generous again. This is where resentment dissolves not through confrontation, but through release. Release of the need to control, release of the need to be right, release of the need to rush the outcome. What remains is presence, and presence is powerful. Chosen one presence restores dignity. It reminds both people that they are more than their worst moments. It creates room for growth without pressure, and it allows God to work in ways that are subtle but lasting. As you continue, you will see how this restored identity shapes the future, how the marriage becomes a place of shared mission rather than constant management, and how heaven redeems what once felt wasted. Stay here. What is unfolding is not just healing, it is alignment with something larger than you imagined. Chosen one. When identity begins to heal, vision quietly returns. This is the stage where many people realize they were never just fighting over moments, they were losing sight of direction. The reactive cycle thrives when there is no shared horizon. But when vision re-enters the relationship, the cycle weakens because it no longer defines the future. Conflict narrows perspective. It pulls focus into survival. Conversations become about getting through the day rather than building a life. Over time, this survival mode erodes hope. People stop dreaming together. They stop planning. They stop imagining what could still be possible. But heaven restores vision before it restores comfort. Vision is what lifts the eyes from the present struggle and reminds the heart that there is more ahead. Not a fantasy version of marriage, but a purposeful one. A shared direction that gives meaning to effort and patience to process. Chosen one. This is why Scripture speaks of vision as something appointed. It arrives when the heart is ready to receive it. And when vision returns, it reframes everything. Challenges become part of a journey rather than proof of failure. I have seen couples rediscover vision in the most ordinary ways. A conversation about what kind of home they want to create. A shared desire to model something healthier for their children. A renewed commitment to spiritual growth together, even if it looks different than expected. These moments are not small. They are seeds. When vision is present, the marriage stops being about winning arguments and starts being about protecting the mission. This is where the language of same team becomes real. Not as a slogan, but as a lived understanding. Two people can disagree and still move in the same direction. They can process pain without turning against each other. They can hold different perspectives without dividing the house. Anointed one division has always been the enemy's most effective strategy. When partners become adversaries, energy is drained internally. But when unity is restored, even imperfectly, strength multiplies. Unity does not mean uniformity, it means alignment of intention. When intention aligns, behavior follows. Not immediately, not flawlessly, but steadily. This is also where the illusion of win-lose dissolves. There is no victory if one person walks away diminished. There is no success if peace is sacrificed. The only outcomes that last are those where both people feel seen, respected, and valued. Chosen one. This realization changes how conflict is approached. Instead of asking, "How do I prove my point?" the question becomes, "How do we protect what we are building?" This single shift dismantles the cycle's leverage. I remember a moment when this became clear to me. I realized that every time a conversation ended with one of us feeling small, the relationship lost ground. Even if I felt justified, even if I felt right, the cost was too high. That awareness changed how I engaged. Vision protects from unnecessary battles. When you know where you are going, you stop fighting over detours. You recognize when an argument is not worth the damage it causes. You learn to pause and ask, is this aligned with the future we want? This does not mean avoiding hard conversations. It means having them within a framework of shared purpose. Within that framework, truth can be spoken without tearing down trust. Anointed One. Heaven is not asking you to manufacture vision. It is asking you to make room for it. Vision emerges naturally when the heart is no longer consumed by defense. This is why patience matters here. Vision unfolds gradually. It may start as a sense rather than a plan, a quiet conviction rather than a clear outline. But as alignment deepens, clarity follows. And here is the sacred truth. Even if your spouse does not yet share this vision, your alignment still matters. One aligned heart can shift the atmosphere. One person choosing unity can interrupt generational patterns. God has always worked through willing individuals. He does not wait for perfect agreement to begin moving. He responds to availability. Chosen One. Your marriage is not defined by its hardest seasons. It is defined by the direction you choose next. And direction is always a choice. As you continue, you will learn how faith anchors vision, how spiritual partnership reshapes daily life, and how heaven uses restored alignment to bring redemption beyond what you imagined. Stay with me. The next movement will show you how surrender and faith complete the work that understanding began. Chosen One. Now we arrive at the place where everything comes together, not through effort, but through surrender. Understanding exposed the cycle. Awareness weakened it. Alignment disrupted it. But surrender is what removes its authority completely. Surrender does not mean giving up. It means yielding control over outcomes while remaining faithful in posture. It is the quiet decision to trust God with timing, process, and transformation, especially when progress feels slow or uneven. This is where many struggle because surrender feels like vulnerability without guarantees. The mind asks, what if I soften and nothing changes? What if I let go and I'm the only one doing the work? These questions are honest, and heaven does not dismiss them. But heaven responds with something deeper than certainty. It offers peace. Chosen One. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of trust. Trust that God sees what you cannot. Trust that He works beneath the surface. Trust that obedience bears fruit even when you cannot measure it immediately. I have watched people surrender outcomes while staying committed to alignment, and something remarkable happens. The pressure lifts, the urgency fades, the constant scanning for change stops, and in that release the heart rests. That rest is not passive, it is powerful. When you stop trying to force transformation, space opens for God to move freely. This is why faith is essential in this stage. Faith is not belief that everything will turn out exactly as you hope. Faith is the confidence that God is good regardless of the outcome, and that confidence stabilizes the soul. Chosen One faith anchors you when emotions fluctuate. It reminds you that your worth is not tied to the success of the relationship, that your obedience is not wasted, that your alignment is seen. This is where spiritual partnership deepens, not necessarily between you and your spouse at first, but between you and God. As that partnership strengthens, it spills into every interaction. You respond differently, you listen differently, you speak differently, and those differences are felt. I remember a season when nothing outward seemed to change. Conversations were still cautious, distance still existed, but inside something was settling. I was no longer reactive, no longer desperate, no longer afraid of silence. That internal shift changed everything even before circumstances caught up. Chosen One. Heaven often completes its work invisibly before it becomes visible. This is why patience is holy. It honors process, it trusts timing, and it keeps the heart open while waiting. Scripture reminds us that at the appointed time, God makes things happen swiftly. But before the swift moment comes, the steady preparation. Do not underestimate the power of consistency here. Small acts of alignment, daily choices to pause, ongoing commitment to safety. These create a foundation that can support sudden breakthrough without collapse. And when breakthrough comes, it often looks quieter than expected. Not dramatic reconciliation, but steady warmth. Not instant passion, but renewed ease. Not perfect unity, but genuine partnership. Chosen one. This is what lasting restoration looks like. As surrender deepens, fear loses its grip. Fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of failure. You realize that even if the journey takes longer than you hoped, you are not alone. God is present in the waiting, not just the resolution. This is also where gratitude emerges, not because everything is fixed, but because clarity has arrived. Gratitude for awareness, gratitude for growth, gratitude for the strength to remain open, and gratitude changes the atmosphere. When gratitude enters, resentment cannot stay. When gratitude grows, hope follows, and hope reorients the future. Chosen one. Your marriage was never meant to be sustained by force. It was meant to be sustained by faith, wisdom, and love practiced daily. The reactive cycle does not define your story. It was a chapter necessary for learning, but not meant to be permanent. What lies ahead is not perfection, but peace. Not certainty, but trust. Not control, but connection. As you move forward, carry this truth with you. Alignment invites grace. Grace transforms hearts, and transformed hearts create new patterns. Stay faithful, stay present, stay surrendered. What heaven began revealing to you in this Kairos moment will continue unfolding in timing that is precise, personal, and purposeful. Chosen one. Now we come to the place where many stories quietly diverge. Not because revelation stopped, but because perseverance is tested. This is where heaven asks a different kind of faith, not the faith that expects immediate change, but the faith that remains steady when progress feels subtle. After surrender, there is often a season of waiting. Not empty waiting, but active faithfulness. This is the season where the old cycle tries to return, not loudly, but subtly. It whispers, "See, nothing is really different." It tempts you to measure progress by emotional highs or visible results. But heaven measures differently. Heaven measures roots. Roots grow in darkness. They deepen where no one applauds. They strengthen where no one sees. And when storms come, it is the depth of the roots, not the beauty of the leaves, that determines what stands. Chosen one, do not confuse quiet with stagnation. There is a holy work happening beneath the surface. Neural pathways are changing. Emotional reflexes are being retrained. Spiritual authority is being reclaimed. And these things take time, not because God is slow, but because transformation that lasts must be integrated, not rushed. This is where endurance becomes sacred. Endurance is not gritting your teeth and surviving. It is choosing alignment again and again, even when old triggers try to lure you back into reaction. It is noticing the urge to blame and choosing responsibility instead. It is feeling the pull to withdraw and choosing presence instead. These are not small victories, they are foundational ones. I have seen how easy it is in this season to romanticize the past, even the painful parts. The mind forgets the cost of the cycle and remembers only the familiarity. But familiarity is not the same as safety, and comfort is not the same as peace. Chosen one. Peace often feels unfamiliar at first. When chaos has been normal for a long time, calm can feel strange, silence can feel unsettling, and stability can feel boring. But this is not loss, it is recalibration. Your nervous system is learning a new rhythm. Your heart is learning a new language. This is why gentleness matters now, especially toward yourself. There will be moments when you react out of habit, moments when old patterns resurface. Do not let shame convince you that everything is undone. Shame is not from God. Conviction leads to clarity. Shame leads to hiding, and hiding is where the cycle thrives. When you stumble, return. When you react, repair. When you feel discouraged, remember. Remember how far you have already come. Chosen one consistency reshapes destiny. Not dramatic moments, not emotional declarations, but faithful, repeated alignment. This is also the season where spiritual discernment sharpens. You begin to recognize the early signals, the subtle shifts in tone, the internal tightening, the emotional charge before words are spoken. What once surprised you now alerts you, and what once controlled you now invites choice. This is maturity. Maturity is not the absence of emotion, it is the presence of discernment. And with discernment comes authority. Authority does not shout. It does not demand. It does not prove. Authority rests. And when you rest in alignment, others feel it, even if they cannot name it. I have watched relationships change simply because one person stopped feeding the cycle, not confronting it, not fighting it, just refusing to participate. Over time, the dynamic adjusted, not perfectly, not instantly, but undeniably. Chosen one cycles collapse when they are not reinforced. This is where faith and patience work together. Faith keeps your eyes on what God is doing. Patience allows him to do it in his way. Together they protect you from despair and from striving. You are not late. You are not failing. You are not alone. Heaven is attentive in this season. Scripture reminds us that those who wait on the Lord renew their strength. Waiting does not weaken you, it strengthens you. It aligns you. It prepares you to carry what is coming without breaking under its weight. And something is coming. Not because you earned it, not because you perfected the process, but because you remained open. Chosen one. The work you are doing now is not only for your present relationship, it is generational. Patterns stop with you, cycles end with you. What you refuse to pass on becomes a blessing to those who follow. This is why perseverance matters. As you continue, you will see how hope begins to feel natural again, how joy returns without effort, how trust rebuilds without force, and how love, real, grounded, resilient love, finds room to breathe. Stay faithful in the small choices. Stay gentle in the slow moments. Stay aligned when it would be easier to retreat. The final movement will bring everything home, not as an ending, but as an integration. What you have learned will become who you are. And what once disrupted your marriage will no longer have permission to stay. Chosen one. This is where everything integrates, not as a technique you practice, but as a way you live. What began as awareness becomes instinct. What once required effort becomes natural, and what once disrupted your marriage no longer has permission to stay. Integration is quiet. It does not announce itself. It reveals itself in moments you would have reacted before but don't. In conversations that once escalated but soften. In choices that once felt impossible but now feel clear. This is how heaven completes its work, not by removing all challenges, but by transforming how you meet them. You are no longer learning about the reactive cycle. You are living outside of it. That does not mean conflict disappears. It means conflict no longer defines you. You recognize it early. You tend to your heart quickly. You choose alignment without drama. And because of that, peace has room to remain even when circumstances are imperfect. Chosen one. This is maturity in love. Love that does not panic. Love that does not perform. Love that does not demand immediate results. This love is grounded, it is patient, and it is strong enough to wait without losing itself. One of the most beautiful signs of integration is this: you stop narrating the process in your head. You are no longer constantly evaluating whether things are improving. You are present, and presence over time creates its own evidence. I want you to hear this clearly, especially if you are the one who chose alignment first. Your faithfulness has not been invisible. Heaven honors obedience that happens in secret. The work you did internally mattered before it ever showed up externally, and even if the relationship did not transform in the way you imagined you did, and that transformation is never wasted. Chosen one. God does not measure success the way humans do. He measures faithfulness, faithfulness to stay open, faithfulness to stay aligned, faithfulness to love without controlling outcomes. This faithfulness reshapes destiny. There are marriages that will be restored fully and visibly. There are others that will shift more quietly but no less profoundly. And there are some where God's greatest work will be in the heart of the one who chose obedience regardless of the outcome. All of these paths carry dignity. All of them carry purpose. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are not forgotten. The Kairos moment that brought you here was not just about your marriage, it was about your authority, about learning to live from alignment rather than reaction, about breaking patterns that may have existed long before you arrived, about becoming someone who carries peace into every space they enter. And here is the quiet promise: what you have learned here will follow you beyond this relationship, into friendships, into family dynamics, into leadership, into every place where emotional pressure once dictated behavior. You now carry discernment where instinct once ruled. Chosen one. This is the fruit of the work. As you move forward, you may still encounter echoes of the old cycle. That does not mean it has returned. It means your awareness has sharpened. When you notice it, you will know what to do. Pause, breathe, tend your heart, invite God, choose alignment, move on. No drama, no shame, no fear. This is how cycles end. And as they end, space opens for something new. Not forced happiness, but quiet joy. Not constant intensity, but steady warmth. Not perfection, but trust. If this message has met you where you are, honor the moment. Alignment deepens when it is acknowledged. Stay connected. Stay present. And if you feel led, share where you are watching from, your city, your place on the map, because none of us walk this journey alone. And if you choose to continue walking with this work, stay close. Subscribe not out of obligation, but as a marker of alignment. Chosen one. What heaven revealed to you in this hour was not random. It was written, and what has been revealed cannot be unrevealed. Walk forward differently, love more wisely, rest more deeply. The third presence no longer leads your marriage. Alignment does. Chosen one. As this message comes to a close, know this with certainty: you are not leaving empty. What heaven sealed for you is now opening. The hidden scroll over your life and your marriage is being revealed in this very Kairos moment, your appointed time on heaven's clock. Remain faithful, stay aligned, walk forward with gratitude, because what has shifted in the spirit will soon manifest in the natural. Anointed one, may peace guard your heart, may wisdom steady your steps, and may divine order replace every cycle that once tried to rule you. If this word resonated, stay connected, subscribe as an act of alignment, and quietly share your city in the comments as a testimony that heaven met you here. Go in grace. Your next chapter has already begun.